Perfect timing. Hello, Mark.
Hey, how you doing? Mate?
Good. You?
Yeah, very good, actually. Very good indeed. Yeah. So you're California, it doesn't look that warm, actually. I thought it was going to be like a lot more sunny over there where you are.
Not quite. It's getting a bit cool now, now that we're getting into autumn.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
Well,
you're
that's the
over
thing.
in
I'm
England?
in Ibiza. No, I'm in Ibiza. Ibiza.
Pizza?
Ibiza.
Pizza.
Oh,
Ibiza.
okay.
Yeah,
Antifa.
yeah, Ibiza. Yeah, so like the party island off the coast of Spain.
Ah.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, well, there's not been much of that going on this year, that's for sure.
I bet.
It's a
Yeah.
bit, yeah, it's a bit of a quiet one this year, but that's all right because I've kind of had my head down anyway, working on lots of projects all at the same time at the moment. So it's been pretty full on, but so it's actually been really good. I think the pandemic's been like one of the best things that's ever happened because it's kind of like a transformative. What's happening now, what's emerging is amazing. And anybody that's tuned into that, you can see what's happening. I mean, it is like this emergence that's being created right now is, it's mind-boggling, some of it. So that's kind of like, that's where we're sort of, we're kind of connected with like a few different areas around it. Do you know much about like the stuff that we've been working on at all?
A little bit. We're familiar with Holochain.
We're actually in the final stages of creating our collective foundational document. We're just waiting on another person from Holochain who's charged with dealing with jurisdictional issues.
Okay, so what's the actual, the full scope of the project that you're working on? What is it that you're actually bringing to the collective ultimately?
A lot. It's very hard
The void.
to explain it in any other terms, but to look at it as a framework for the new community for community governance system. It's allowing and enabling for the tracking of different community services within each community, public, private, etc., and being able to have a engagement opportunity for the players, individuals within the community that are either using the resources or developing the resources or finding the resources, helping to expand the ability for people to connect, to build up our communities and improve quality of life for all living beings on the planet.
Awesome.
A flip. It's basically a flip of what we're used to with the capitalist system going over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, awesome. Because I can see why it's a good job. Well, it's good that we've connected actually, because there are kind of like some of the key components that we're working on, and also like we've got kind of like a really amazing tech collective around us also, that are effectively looking at developing not exactly what you're doing, but have like got some really amazing kind of key sort of system architecture on how governance would work around exactly that kind of particular area.
Right.
So I don't know whether like what what your angle is, whether it's like more the kind of the structural architecture of it, or whether it's like how people actually self-govern themselves, or are you approaching it from a governance system, an economic system? Like where are you at with all of that?
Yeah, it starts from the infrastructure out into the engagement side for the people getting engaged, and then following that their own paths along a consolidated template, basically.
Okay.
Or
That's
paths
a
of improvement
consensus
and
built.
quality of life.
Okay.
Pathways of
Yeah.
improvement
Okay.
for personal
Yeah.
life and also within the community involvement structure.
Okay. And how far are you with that? You're almost done. You're ready to kind of build a platform around it. I mean, like, where are you at with exactly that?
We're at the point where, like in the chat, you've been talking with me basically. It's been where we've been needing to lean on something like a graph database system like Neo4j to consolidate and do the relational mapping.
Yeah.
We also feel it's very important for people to have a visual map in help assisting their guidance, so they can look upstream or downstream to help assist their direction that they want to go.
Yeah.
And help fill in
Okay.
some of those gaps.
So yeah, because I mean, like, there's some amazing developments around kind of like the sort of holonic architectural systems. Do you know Brooks Cole from Hollow? Do you know him?
No, but the only one we know from Hollow is Jay, which is handling the jurisdictional side, and
yeah, I'm not talking about Holochain.
Raymond.
Not talking about
yeah,
Holochain.
Okay. I'm not talking about Holochain. I'm talking about Hollow, something else. But it's basically, there's like a whole Hollow movement. So like you've got Holochain, but then you've got like New Map, Hollow. There's like some of the systems that are kind of being developed around kind of holonic architecture in order to map new system kind of structural architecture, which is kind of like the sort of thing that you're talking about.
Basically, a distributed ledger system is where they're coming from.
Yeah. So there's much more sophisticated systems. That's kind of like a base system, but there's actually like way more sophisticated systems out there. I mean, like Brooks Cole's system is all built on like how to put the person as like centric within their whole data system. So like the person then has sovereignty over themselves within a virtual space, so that then everything is mapped around them using like, I mean, when you actually watch his system in action, it's super pretty. It uses like spiral dynamics and sacred geometry, how it begins to map information around the person. When you start to integrate stuff like that in terms of how you begin to build the architecture of like new social structuring around stuff like that, it makes the interaction of the person with the environment much more engaging, and and much easier for everything to be tailored very specifically to the individual. So we're kind of like so where we're at, I mean, like the pieces, the things that you probably don't know about us. Like my background, I come at all of this from a financial background. So I've actually been a trader for 11 years, and I've developed a piece of software which lands in the next about 6 weeks, 2 months. No, yeah, about 2 months. And it's a disruptive piece of financial software that basically multiplies money at 100% every 4 weeks. So it has incredible potential for transformation. So I'm kind of gifting it to the regenerative movement as a tool to begin to catalyze transformation. So we're kind of like, I've done deals with impact banks and big investment firms and stuff like that that are going to use us as a financial services tool, so that we can start to have large scale funding channeling through this system, so we can begin to fund all of the different projects that are beginning to emerge. We've kind of created a network called the Open World Alliance, which is basically a kind of a network where we are, we're kind of looking at doing a staged system of kind of restructuring. So like the first part is we're looking at is ecosystem restoration, of actually rebuilding key acupuncture points around the planet that need to be repaired in order to restore balance within the climate and stuff like this. So that's kind of like the first stage. The second stage is beginning to like fund emerging technologies, and we're connected with 2,000 regenerative technologies right now. Each one could literally transform key areas of transportation, aviation, agriculture, healthcare. I mean, like I'm connected with some amazing, amazing technologies. So we're looking to fund them and help them upscale so that they can be integrated into new systems, and looking at how we can begin to monetize those systems to a place where they have everything that they need so that they can then contribute what they do into a new resource-based economic model. So we've been kind of working with some key kind of social structure architects around like the development of new government governance systems that can kind of integrate with these new ideas. So we've been kind of like beginning to sort of synergize the architects. So like all of the people that are like, well, we've got an amazing governance model, we've got an amazing governance model, so we. And we're like, right, okay, well, look, there's no point in having loads and loads of different things. It's like in order for us to really catalyze the change that we all want to see, is we need to start looking at how do we begin to bring these pieces together? How do we get it so that organizations can play effectively together? How can we get it so that these different organizations can stop duplicating the same thing and actually begin to synergize and work together as one and move things forwards? So those are kind of like the things that we've been looking at the moment, and I've been kind of like having conversations with a few of the sort of the key social architecture architects around exactly that, of like, okay, well, look, I think we need to, in order to create that sort of change, we need to address obviously the economics, the finance, the technology, and the governance system. Once we've kind of like integrated those key systems at the top, then we can begin to, other systems can start to change and orbit around those. But we really need to kind of, I think, is for us to all start to come together and really start to open up lines of conversation between the people that are thinking about those specific areas. And there's quite a few of them, and all of them, what I'm finding is most of the social architecture people, they have the thinking is very similar. It's kind of like, it's like emerging in consciousness right now, isn't it? I mean, like that's kind of what's happening, is like there's the people that are beginning to think like that are all, their sources are coming from the same place. So it's like they're kind of channeling the same information, and it's like, but maybe with like a few like slight different nuances that comes from them as a person. So it's like, well, okay, so how do we like get those people that, let's drop the egos, let's sit down around a table and be like, right, okay, let's start to address how we begin to really make these systems work in
Right.
terms of like, if we're all going to look at how we're going to restructure society on a global scale, obviously we've got to be able to take into consideration cultural differences and all these kinds of different things that contribute to larger social systems, and how do we begin to integrate those into new places. And we've also been looking at like the gamification of the governance systems. We're
Right,
kind of
which
working
is a perfect model for testing
exactly,
and
exactly.
all the research and everything like that, which basically brings us all to the same consensus, depending on where we're at with what we've learned and experienced. I think is a consolidated network, federated model.
What we're sharing here is what we've put together, as far as creating a structure for people to engage in this game, both virtually and terrestrially.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of where we've been focusing our efforts. We're taking the meritocracy model and giving it some substance here,
Okay.
where it's peer to peer and mentorship and being open to learning new things and then being recognized for those accomplishments that not only you come in with, but that you gain while going and walking through the different missions and quests that are being published all the time. So it would be like community missions being published, community for community missions being published, and then people accepting those missions. And then we have a tracking system, and we have people going in as new players. They have the ability to create a profile. We want to be able to expand upon that. Right now, it's really limited because we're using a lot of open source
and
old school methods right now, but we do have already a ticket tracking system through OS Ticket. And then I don't know how far you got on this site here, but down in this section here, there are some links on the left to bring people in, learning more about what our current community for community project is, which I want to share with you. But I wanted to first start with this. This is about the meritocracy model that we have been developing. There's other people out there creating badges as well that we want to be able to identify and make available through this portal. We have our character strength badges, our virtues and strengths that have been created. You click on these badges and it'll take you through a list for each of the virtues. This is all based on evidence and studies done by these two people up here. Hold on, I'm sorry, can't remember their name. Christopher Peterson and Martin Seligman. So this pamphlet book talks about their study and what they discovered. And when we talk to other people, it all comes down to character. Whatever they're capable of as an individual, their honesty, their integrity, their courage, their humanity, all of these things come into play in the end, no matter what the job is. Because we're looking at this as, you have to care, you have to have compassion, you have to have consideration, and you have to have judgment, the ability to have good judgment, and all these things require self-reflection first.
Yeah.
So that we can identify those virtues and character traits that we have within ourselves, as well as the skills that we have and our capabilities, before we can say, all right, so this is who I am, and I would like to share this information or this skill as a mentor, as a contractor, as a volunteer, as whatever you're capable of as an individual. And so that's what we've been developing, is that kind of meritocracy portal model.
Yeah.
It's based off of positive psychology, and we looked at two of the primary positive psychology organizations formed out of it. Like Dr. Martin Seligman was a founder or co-founder of Positivity Project, which focuses on lower education, like elementary schools. And they were able to find that even in the most impoverished and difficult situations for those schools, like they're out in the ghettos or whatever, that everything across the board, the personal dynamics, the social dynamics, family dynamics, all of it goes up for a beneficial effect for everybody. So there's like less fighting, less instigations of disagreements, more engagement between people. The children that are more receptive, they do a lot better in grades. And then they have another model that they implemented focusing on veterans and veteran health that includes local heroes to be acknowledged and included in the community, say like teachers and first responders, for example, being recognized as also heroes in their own right, and providing that bonding experience. They were just awarded an accreditation for the VA, the Veterans Health Authority, and they may be getting included in the U.S. Veterans program for veteran health and everything. So really great models that we built off of. And of course, this isn't all encompassing. It's just one piece of the puzzle that we want to see stacked on top, between what we've come up with, what they've come up with all these other organizations, like what you guys have going on.
Open world.
Just consolidating the information to show these people on an open platform.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's like having options, because obviously, there's also like, people are looking at kind of like sociocracy, holocracy, you guys with meritocracy. I mean, there's some really interesting systems, new systems of how to begin to interact with each other. And I think like the process of being able to give people options of how they want to live within a community, and how they can begin to self-organize. So I think what needs to happen is ultimately it's like a larger system needs to be created in order for people to be able to find, okay, well, this one really resonates with us and our community, whereas this other one works for somebody else. And I mean, these are some of the things that we're kind of looking at around, like with kind of the gamification. Do you know much about the Civil X project?
Yes, we're working with Jordan, one of the story creators there. So we've had quite a few conversations with him regarding this, and he's been working on avatars right now. And
that's it. Exactly. Yeah, because we're kind of we're also working with Jordan as well, and a whole bunch of other people. But because we're looking at integrating the regenerative database project that we're creating into the Civil X project, so that it will mean that it will kind of be able to gamify all of the kind of regenerative solutions systems, because we're working with a load of different agencies around that, like Buckminster Fuller, Regenerosity, Realliance, WOCAT, Ecolese, like some real key kind of regenerative organizations that are obviously dedicated to kind of transformation, but on a more sort of regenerative approach to building systems, and also obviously restoring natural ecosystems as well. So we're kind of working on effectively like a Regenepedia, which will, you'll be able to access satellite information, and you'll be able to go in and look at, let's say you want to create a permaculture project for 1,000 to feed 1,000 people in Indonesia. You'll be able to go into the database, put in what it is that you're looking for, and then it would then access the satellites, look at what the soil types, weather systems, watershed, all that kind of stuff for that particular area. Then it would scan the rest of the planet to look for maybe 70 or 80% match. It'd find, okay, well, these solutions worked in this other place, this could potentially work for you. And then here's the people in your local area that could help make that happen. Here's access to funders that would be interested in funding that project. And here's the materials that you need to use to realize that project. And here's the supply chain for you to be able to access those materials.
And of course, a lot of the philanthropists out there are going to want to see, okay, where's your stack of knowledge to support what you're trying to do in your project?
Yeah, well, it all comes from all of these amazing agencies.
Away from that too. We don't want to do any homework.
Yeah.
We want to go on the show side. And we've gone through, gone around the block enough times to go, that just doesn't work. It's a great way to start off, yet it says a lot about your character and desperation within these times, you're willing to go ahead and take a lot of shortcuts that are going to go ahead and cut your own nose, including your own credibility in the long run. We prefer to play on the long game.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, likewise.
So
Yeah,
that's
like
one of the main reasons why you hear us talking big about how important research is.
yeah,
If
I
we
totally
can take
agree.
this research that all correlates and show it in a very concise manner to people in legislature or parliament, for example, over in the UK, or philanthropists, the whole objective should be a grand slam knocked out of the park with a very short period of time.
Yeah. Well, I think that, which is why I think it's really, really important for all of like the key holders right now that have like done amazing research, amazing projects, have all got these things where it's like we all need to be on each other's radars, know what it is that we're all doing,
Right.
and then actually look at, okay, so how do we start to sync these pieces up? And so like we're kind of at the moment we're sort of working with a few key people that are working on kind of like the governance of organizations to
Right.
connect. So like effectively how you can start to sync organizations with information and data and resources and IP and all that kind of stuff in a way that promotes honesty, transparency, integrity, you know, in a way where we can all play together. And we're like, you know, we know that like if we all start to connect all of our pieces together, we know that we're going to be much greater than the sum of the individual parts.
Yes.
So it's like, you know,
Right.
we need to really look at how that works together. So that's kind of like sort of where we're at the moment, is like working on that piece, because effectively that's what our alliance project is. It's an alliance. It's not an organization. It's an idea. You know, it's an idea which is centered around people coming together, organizations coming together to solve what the problems are. And you know the problems are vast, and they're like, you know, they're such deep rooted in every area of society. So in order to do that, it's not just, you know, like if you solve the kind of like a governance model or an economic system, then you solve everything. It's like it's so embedded in, you know, transportation, aviation, agriculture, healthcare, like the pharmaceutical industry, oil. I mean, like this, I mean, it's, the list goes on and on. It's
Right.
miles and miles long, as you know. So it's
So to
like, in order,
minimize that work, it's
yeah,
often the best choice to go look at the root, which means you need to go find some research to back it up. Okay, what is
yeah,
most core where these problems derive out of? So if we can focus on that core attribute that has an issue and get it addressed, we've done one project, one focus, and helped eliminate the problems on like 20 other different issues that are downstream.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. So it's like, and that's kind of what we've been looking at in terms of like the regenerative technologies that we've connected with. I mean, they're like, I mean, as an example, you know, we've got technologies that picks up like the resonant frequency in the voice, so that you can talk into this app for 30 seconds. It'll diagnose everything that's wrong with you with 100% accuracy. And then you can put a set of headphones on that will actually like harmonize with the frequency of the thing that's wrong with you, and actually send the particles back in time and actually heals the things that are wrong with you. They've healed cancer 100% of the time in within 24 hours,
Wow.
and without any pharmaceutical drugs whatsoever.
Yeah, I
Um,
studied some of the harmonic frequency healing techniques throughout the years. I'm a Reiki master, and that's part of what we have established as a core of the framework is the chakra and character trait relationships and the um, harmonic
Positive
frequencies,
psychology.
positive psychology, and the harmonic frequencies And so, to bring them all together in one view
Yeah.
of understanding, so that because different people have different ways of processing information, and not everybody's going to say, oh, chakras, I understand chakras, but they might understand positive psychology and the core virtues and the character traits, or they might understand the harmonic frequency in music. And so we want to make sure that we are able to cover all of those bases.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm looking for for the sheet that I wanted to share with you. I didn't have it open, but now I have it open here. So this goes through identifying the different chakras, what part of the body, what character strengths and virtues, and then what kinds of affirmations are linked to each chakra, what kinds of illnesses are linked to each chakra. And we're, continuing to develop on this. I'm having an issue right here. All right, here, let's see. So, we're looking at the mental illnesses and filling that section out as well. To identify these issues as part of the healing process, and then being able to provide missions specific to healing each of those different disharmonies within an individual, based on looking at them through this lens or that lens or any lens.
Yeah. Interesting.
Failed.
Yeah. So yeah, on your website, how much of your information is
How much? I'm sorry, what?
how much? Yeah, how much of like your framework and stuff that you've developed is on your website? Is most of it on there?
Most of it. This is not. This particular document is not. We have links within the site that go to different external sites and forms. So we have some forms like the profile skills and merit evaluation is a Google form. We have the community for community service evaluation is a Google form. And so there are different pieces in different places, but they're all linked for the most part within the site.
Okay, cool. I'll have a proper read through. I've had just hectic couple of weeks, so I'll have a proper read through, because I'd really like to absorb the stuff that you've been talking about. It'd be good to get a deeper understanding of it, and also kind of like just to know what it is that you've built in more detail. I think could be super useful. And then I think where we're kind of at the moment is we're sort of like we're kind of building like a core structure around a sort of a governance system that we can then invite all of the other people that are kind of doing the similar types of stuff around that, so that we can then kind of put together a larger network of like the architects, so that we can start to sit down and have a conversation of like, okay, well, let's look at like the different structures, like how close are they in terms of, is it possible to bring like a sociocracy, holocracy and meritocracy together and create a system that embodies everything, or does it need to still be kept so that they're like options for people
Right.
to look at? Do you know what I mean? It's like I think
I think we get it. Basically
yeah.
the fringe cases where it doesn't overlap, if you're like looking at a Venn diagram.
Yeah, exactly.
What doesn't, yeah, that would be the templating or boilerplate system from our perspective, and in the federation of those different concepts. What is common, what's not? Don't throw out anything that's not. It's still viable, just on a different track, which is very important because not everybody's on the same track.
Yeah, exactly.
Not everybody's at the same development point in their learning curve, even if they're the same age. You know, we all come from different places with different experiences and different levels of impact to put us where we are right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what makes us so unique, which makes it difficult, yet so amazing for everybody. Because if we weren't unique, we'd all be autonomous robots, you know, with no actual autonomy.
Yeah, exactly.
And no creativity or anything like that. And if I remember correctly, you were bringing up in the Telegram chat that you want to talk about interconnection between acquisition of materials, funds, redistribution, and you know how can we branch out and acquire these different things to help build and consolidate.
We have a idea and proposal that I want to share regarding this.
Hold on.
Oh, dang it.
Hold on.
Stop share. Sorry.
Was that correct, Mark?
Yeah, I mean that's certainly like it's certainly one of the things that I'm very interested in, because like I'm kind of connected to a network of extremely disruptive people that are really looking to change the entire financial architecture that currently exists. And obviously, you know, one like the tool that I've created is one of those pieces, because you drop a system that does 100% every 4 weeks into the financial system, it acts as effectively as like a black hole, and it just sucks all the money back out the banking system, and so that we can channel it into something more constructive. So that's kind of like, and then we're sort of looking at some of the other organizations that we've got orbiting us at the moment that have created some really amazing tech solutions around beginning to create new value out of resources, and how to begin to create liquidity from, you know, to get people that would then be interested in investing into natural resources in a really sustainable and regenerative way, and kind of creating platforms that would enable people to, like anybody, to be able to invest into these things. So it's not just people at the top that are like, you know, already minted that can afford to do that, but instead everybody can then partake and be a part of a larger system. So yeah, so I'm you know, I'm super interested in talking with anybody that's got, you know, any types of financial ideas, solutions, potential technology ideas, developments, you know, things that they're like, well, you know, we could approach it like this or like that. So yeah, in a short answer, yes, I am interested in any of that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's awesome. So you know that we came with the concept of trying to start with the focal point as a neutral balance, a neutral ballast that basically is impenetrable. You can't argue with, hey, we're following the golden rule. I do me, you do you. We get together when we both have consent. Outside of that, you know, no injuries allowed. And here's a template for how to not injure. We've seen something very similar throughout, like fundraising and stuff like that. It's so shotgun, it's so disjointed, and part of that, of course, is capitalism going to the extreme, where it's not kept in proper check and balance. So instead of having organizations compete based on their branding, what if we flipped it? We focus on the actual objective, and the metrics you use are based on core fundamentals that everybody shares and the level of impact. And it spreads out from like your local area out, because we've got all these different levels, whether it's like your local jurisdiction up to state level or national, international, whatever. There's a lot of different layers. So if there were like 5 organizations wanting to be included into like a donation type card or whatever that could get redistributed out into the ledger for work and commerce of all different other kinds, including like work merits, where you're focusing on the actual objective, and then as you follow down, you're able to go ahead and disclose who it is, but they're not put on the forefront. So the objective is focused on the actual objective and the level of impact that they're able to make on positive fashion. So if they're really effective at what they're doing, they're going to be on the top end of the leaderboard. If they're ineffective, they're going to go to the back until they can rotate up. But it all allows for a rotation for people to be dynamic, whether it's an independent person or a corporation or an alliance.
Yeah.
So that's what we basically have come up with so far. And we'd love to go ahead and chat more about it when you have more time. Anybody else that wants to get involved. We just want to know what works on a great consensus that everybody can work with.
Yeah,
you know, whether we're a small part or a large part, we don't care.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's kind of where we're at as well, is like, you know, I'm really interested to have conversations with anybody that's like, you know, has got key, you know, just key ideas, key concepts about like how things can be done better. You know, and then like how we begin to take that to the rest of the world. You know, that's what I'm interested in. It's not just like the theoretical side of doing something. It's like, okay,
let's actually do it.
Let's actually do it. Like,
yeah,
you know,
let's get it done. Let's sit down, put some time into it, and see what we can produce.
Yeah, exactly that. So like, so that's kind of what we've been doing, is like having lots of like these, you know, kind of meetings with just like the key holders. You know, that's kind of like what I've been doing around like our alliance project, is like, okay, who are the key holders right now? Who are the ones that are actually really like producing the work and actually doing the work and producing the stuff that could then be translated into a, you know, a platform or a system or a, you know, and then it's like, okay, well now that we kind of identified who a lot of the key holders are, it's like, now what we need to do is like break them up into kind of like groups where it's like, you know, people that are working on this particular area, it's like, okay, you guys go away and sit down and have a conversation and work out how your pieces all work together, or they just sync up, like you said, in the Venn diagram, where, you know, these little bits connect, but these other bits, they just orbit the larger system. And then, you know, once we're able to do that across all of those kind of key areas, then obviously, then what we need to start doing is actually looking at integrating them into places. And actually, we're kind of connected also with some amazing projects that are beginning to emerge in terms of like the development of new cities that are being built around the planet, that are going to be integrating a lot of the new technologies that we're bringing to the table for them, with a view that all of the people that live there will have free shelter, food, water, and energy as basic human rights within those places. So obviously, in order for that to happen, we need to have like the systems that we're talking about here in order to really manage people, projects, and organizations in a way that is just in harmony with the environment that they're in. So like, we're kind of like, we're sort of working with a few key organizations, and there's some gatherings that are coming up where some of these key holders are being invited to start to actually have some sort of key conversations around beginning to integrate some of these systems into larger actual structures. Because obviously one thing, like trying to create a system and then integrate it into an already existing city, it's like, you know, the chances of people adopting it are like, yeah, I'm not really doing that, whatever.
Well, it depends on how you approach it, and that's why we have been working on this the way that I wanted to share earlier. And was a little preemptive on. Because what it does is it brings an engagement tool into your city or town or community in the form of a kiosk. So the interactive information kiosk goes into the city where people can actually engage in a public area, whether it's at a coffee shop or at the library, or somewhere that's a public place for people to go to, and then be able to not only find the services within their community, but also rate them, and then also be able to offer information of their own into the framework within their community, which then spreads out.
One of the reasons why is because, like most any county or state resource that we have around here, say unemployment department, right? Or the police department, the sheriff's department, your local hospital, they are supposed to inherently act as a referral and deferral site in addition to whatever specific service that they're serving or offering, right? So if an officer comes across someone that's acting erratic, they figure out, oh, well, they have a mental or psychological condition that needs to be addressed. They should be deferring them over to mental health and resources that are not going to go straight to, well, you need to go to jail for this
5150
or whatever because of their obstacle, their handicap. If any handicap or deficiency is realized by the person involved in the encounter, they're not supposed to be taking ultimate authority to make judgment on, okay, well, this is the way it's going to be because I'm in the scope of operation. It's supposed to be, how can I help you to avoid you from going to the worst case scenario? And that's not happening around here. A lot of them, they're just passing the buck, kick the can, and you end up having that wild goose chase. And any services that they're actually providing end up being fraudulent because they're not following within a reasonable amount of time. They're giving you the hope that they're going to help you, but they're only band-aids, and there's no gaps filled between the two, which only end up worsening the situation that you're already in. So like if you're trying to avoid going homeless, you just lost your job, you're trying to find work, you don't have a whole lot of support in reality to try to find actual work, even when you're busting your ass like 80 hours a week, just trying to locate it. You may have been out of looking for work for a long time, like a couple decades, which nowadays is almost unheard of, right? But it still happens. There are still people out there that have had a long work history and completely out of their element in trying to reestablish a network to locate work or a new career, or they're put in a position where they have to settle for something just as a survival thing and can't get out of that rut. They don't have that support system.
Voc rehab isn't really voc rehab. Voc rehab, at least in the states that I've been involved in, voc rehab is basically you attend a few meetings at a social facility, a community facility with a director. That person says, okay, what are your skills and what do you want to do? And then they'll help you fill out your job applications and resumes. But when it comes to actually looking at what jobs are available in the field of aptitude that an individual has, they are very lackluster in their ability to provide that. If it's not available in the community, they don't even provide an opportunity for that individual to be going out of the county to look for a job within their scope, within their desired scope. So it's just really.
And we've noticed a big difference between the way the state and the county operates versus like a local nonprofit. The local nonprofits have a lot more of the spirit of intent to actually be encouraging and supportive, yet they don't have the proper structure to facilitate anything beyond more of the feeling and ambiance, you know, what they're trying to do. And a lot of them they don't have the aptitude or the network to consolidate their efforts between others, largely due to pride, right?
And
Well, that and
funding.
also like a lot of the funding,
Everybody's
yeah.
fighting for funding
Yeah.
instead of doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know, if you have a small nonprofit that's going to try to help people and house them, but you have this bigger government run program that gets all the money, who's getting all of the attention? The government program is, despite the fact that the waiting list for any HUD housing is between 3 to 5 years. Well, how does that help a family that just had a baby born in their home and they lost their home? It doesn't.
No, for sure.
They don't provide safety even for that family. It's that bad.
So this comes back to where we were talking about the void and where we're trying to fill gaps. Find what works and what doesn't, and come up with ways to bridge between the two.
Yeah.
Which brings us to what you were talking about earlier. You have this wonderful idea of like a utopian type future that we want to build towards, and then we have this crap hole that we have right now, and a lot of people don't want to traverse the distance and attach them. So if you have this fantasy over here and you want to try to propose it to a local legislator, for example, or mayor, they're not going to get it. And a lot of them are going in areas that aren't any funding.
But
so
if
you're trying to do something, right? So if you're trying to do something that is a bit out of the box, that isn't currently being considered for the funding pot, you're wasting your time, unless if you're holding hands and collaborating with other organizations where that funding can get diverted, still walking tall above board, not cheating the system. So you're inviting an audit and the criminal system to get involved. Like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, a lot of us realize that the way that the things right now are operating is grossly criminal. Yet we're not those people, so we need to be able to show how we can do it better.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly.
Yeah, just leave them in the dust.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that.
In fact,
like build a better system that makes the old one obsolete.
Exactly.
Right. Yet can currently integrate into it.
Yeah, in fact, even make that government entity want your services, want these kiosks in their area. They're begging for them. That's where
they're already using them.
Yeah, they're already using similar things, just not community wide though. I mean, it's only in certain areas.
They're so antiquated.
They're so antiquated.
Like in the military. You go into the military and you find out, hey, all this stuff is ancient stuff that we're using, unless if you're on the upper end, like special ops, you go, oh, this is like 40 years ahead now. So in the technology field, if we follow the laws of technology, the name of it is escaping me right now, for the evolution of development of processing power and abilities, we're like 100 years ahead, but we're not seeing 100 years ahead in technology. We're not at that point right now, even though they keep preaching it. So if that is actually true, then those improvements are being diverted away from the public and the public use.
Yeah, exactly that. And also, like, you know, there are some amazing technologies out there, but they just haven't actually been given, you know, they're not being funded yet. Like, so, I mean, as I said, I know so many amazing things that is like, with the right amount of money, transformation is inevitable. But, you know, it just requires the right amount of funding, which is obviously where, like, us and some of the other organizations that we're connecting with at the moment, that's kind of where we're coming at it from, is like, how do we begin to flood these new things with enough capital that they require in order to just scale up what they're doing, like, massively quickly. So yeah, that's kind of what that's what the area that we're working on. That's kind of what I specialize in, is that particular piece.
Right.
And then the other parts are are being developed out of the kind of the network that we're like the alliance network, the people that are around that table already, because there's some amazing people and organizations and minds and stuff that are
Like
already
Jordan and
connected.
Jonah and Brandon.
Yeah, exactly. Like those kind of people are all part of like the alliance project, and a whole bunch of other amazing people. Like it's very cool. All of the different technologies and people and resources that are beginning to be fed into the alliance project. And then obviously once the software and the financial engines kick in early next year, we're going to be able to start getting the funding to these different projects to upscale and push them out there. So that's kind of like that's next year's project. This year has been kind of like the networking with the organizations, building the relationships, becoming aware of what it is that everybody's doing, so that I can get a clear picture of who's doing what and how they all connect together, so that I can kind of start initiating conversations between different people. So I'm like, look, you guys should talk to those guys. You guys should speak to those guys. Let's like start to have some conversations around
Right.
that. And then, once that kind of begins to sort of mobilize, then it's like, you start to get a much clearer picture of like, oh, right, okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Now all we need is the funding to be able to do it. And then the rest is inevitable. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, is kind of like we're in the connections phase, and obviously we're developing. We're sort of developing a few key systems, and kind of putting those into place around sort of regenerative solutions and financial solutions and stuff like that. So those are all being built right now. So they'll, the financial system lands at the end of the year. The regenerative solutions data system will be next year. I don't know, maybe about 6 months from now, because that's quite a big project. But yeah, all of these pieces, they're all coming together at the moment. So it's like, so that's why when I started seeing what you guys are doing, I was kind of just watching the stuff in like the different threads that I'm kind of following and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I think we should probably have a conversation as well, so that I could start to understand.
Well, that was pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Lumini dropped us in, and
I don't hang
next
around.
day, you're like, hey, can we talk?
Yeah, exactly. I don't hang around.
This is amazing.
Well, it's good to know what everybody's working on. I think it's really important that we start to like really synchronize what we're all doing, and so that we all understand where we're all coming from. Because in order for us to make the change, none of us can do it by ourselves. It's impossible.
No. Oh no. It is so much work.
Can we get your email address? Can you just put that in quick? Because then I can send you the authorization to review the information packet, which is our introductory. It's 12 chapters, some of which I shared today, some of which is on the site, but not the detailed version. And so if you get that packet, you should be able to share it with your network.
I PM'd it to you also in Messenger.
The link for it,
yeah. That's basically the manual. Look at the team layout. We'd like to get that more fully expanded. It's on a basic level right now, but it starts out basically, we're trying to meld a lot of different layers and conceptualizations throughout, obviously, using the heroship model. Starts out with Phoenix, and then it goes to Fusion, and then Forge for like development layers within the team. And the teams are the focal point where everything happens, whether it's a new startup business, a collaborative team, micro teams,
events, coordination,
think
all
tanks,
kinds of.
what have you.
We have different,
Okay,
30
cool.
different teams, and we are continuing to build on those teams and add more teams, and individuals are
Okay, awesome.
assigned to those teams to per their preference, per their abilities and skills.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I'll what I'll do is I'll dig through that and kind of like absorb it, and then I'll probably come back to you with a bunch of questions.
No, that'll be
And
great. It'll
That's
take a little while to absorb, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And
yeah, I will do. I
most
will do.
people, it does.
Yeah,
But I
I
have
will.
no doubt that you're going to be able to absorb all of it and comprehend it.
Yeah, well,
Pretty
that's kind of what I've been doing with like all of the other architects that I've been kind of talking to. Is like, you know, I've been kind of going away, reading all the stuff they send me, and I've had like pages and pages and, you know, of just so much stuff. And it's like absorb it and then be like, right, okay, yeah, you guys should like let's connect you with them. Let's like start opening up the conversation around that, because I think that'd be like really, really useful for all of you to, you know,
Yeah.
like, because I'm seeing like some really bigger architectural pieces beginning to emerge through like the alignment of, you know, some of these key holders coming together. So that's kind of what I've been really encouraging, is for them to just start opening up a line. Because do you know what? It's been so funny. It's like some of them have known each other for years, but then they've just never had a conversation about it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Like,
ended up, yeah, it's like exactly that.
come on,
And I
talk.
ended up, yeah, and I ended up reading like the material from one organization and then from another, and I was like, you guys should really have a conversation. I was like, you'd have saved both of you so much time if you'd have actually like just had a conversation 5 years ago. And
right.
and
We
that's the
found that the ego gets in the way quite often.
100%, 100%.
And of course, below the ego is the spirit of intent.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Now it's kind of reaching a point where people are beginning to be more open to that, because then they know that the time is now to act. So as a result of it, people are beginning to work on that. But I mean, there is still a, you know, a big part of that which requires some maneuvering around. You know, I think like, you know, the ego is like the biggest saboteur of everything ever, you know. So it's like it really does require coming at these things from a place of like, well, look, I'm willing to bend, or, you know, like if somebody can offer me a better way of doing something, I'm really open to it. And do you know what I mean? It's like when people start to think like that, suddenly like things start to really kind of gel together really nicely, because people start to flow more easily when they work together, you know. And that's kind of what I've been like really sort of just encouraging conversations around that, and so far it's been very successful. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to digging into your stuff and really absorbing it, and then having some further conversations and digging into your ideas and your systems in more detail. I think that'd be great. So yeah, so are you gone?
Sweet.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's good to it's just good to, I mean, because do you know what, I don't know an awful lot about meritocracy. I've been mostly like, most of the people that I know at the moment have been kind of like focusing on kind of sociocracy and holocracy. So I know loads about that. So I'm actually really looking forward. It's like a whole new thing to get my head
It's
around.
actually
So,
really basic. Like, have you done much? I would presume you've done some study in theology and spiritualities in different religions.
yeah, and interestingly enough, my mum was a high priestess of the Coven of Witches, so that's kind of what I got brought up with. So yeah, I have a reasonable understanding of things.
Okay, so
to do with
the general consensus, they basically all say the same stuff, just through different lenses throughout history, right?
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. It all basically
Well,
comes
that's really
down to Treat yourself
recognition
like you want, treat others like you want to treat yourself.
and
Yeah.
recognition of skills and abilities and virtues that each individual has. Like when we had our crests, your family crest, right? You've done study in that, yeah? A
Yeah.
lot of those family crests were built on what that family started with. So my heritage
And what they stood for.
and what they stood for. So in my heritage, like the Harlans were a seafaring family. Like they did shipping all over the place. So you see a seahorse on the crest there. That shows that's what their basis was, is they were seafaring people and they shipped all across the world. So that kind of then transforming it into not just your heritage and your crest from your heritage, but what you as an individual are developing as your legacy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's yeah. It's it sounds like an interesting system. I'm looking forward to understanding more about it and really digging into that. And yeah, and just like seeing where where the connections are, where the overlaps and things like that are with some of these other like social architectural ideas that are being kind of like talked about and stuff at the moment. Because there's some amazing minds and amazing ideas that are beginning to emerge. It's like everybody's doing like similar things. They're like, this system is fucked. How do we make a better one?
Right?
Scramble! We gotta fix this before we're all
Yeah,
doomed.
yeah, exactly.
Everybody wants
exactly that.
recognition too. And okay, like the golden rule, it goes back to the natural law
Yeah,
and linguistics. So
yeah,
like Latin and Greek are the two primary root languages globally, correct?
yeah, yeah,
Along with different branches like medical, law, and so on. We've got the root words, and some very interesting people in history have decided to go ahead and twist them, which has led us to
oh
our
yeah,
current
exactly.
largely
Yeah, exactly.
narcissistic society, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly that.
And so some of us have figured out we're actually within a theater and didn't realize it. It's kind of like you're on this island that's a prison, like a penal colony, and you don't know. And you're given the premise that, hey, you were born into freedom. And then the more you learn about it, the more you're like, this isn't freedom. So what do
Yeah,
we do now?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, it's time to like just go, right, enough is enough. It's time like to like take everything back and retake control of how everything is operating, and actually like start to kind of integrate how it was really supposed to be, as opposed to how it got corrupted.
Right. And if we take extreme action, we're actually kind of following their lead. We're taking their bait.
Yeah.
To get further perpetuated into more of a life we really don't want, further away from the quality of life that we all inherently deserve and have earned and have a birthright of.
Yeah, exactly.
The only ones that don't are those that knowledgeably, willfully choose not to infringe upon others. Like you violate a code, a governmental code, that's not a crime.
Yeah.
That it's very different, because to commit a crime, you have to commit an injury upon another person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, it was great talking with you, Mark, and I hope that we can get another meeting together with some more people in it to continue this discussion and see how we can merge these models into a more attainable structure that everyone can just say, that makes total sense. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's do that. Let me get through your material, and then once I've done that, let's have another conversation, and then let's see like how we can start to connect and do like, you know, connecting up with some of the other networks and stuff like that that we're connected with. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pastor
Listen,
Rita,
I'm going to have to shoot off because I've got
That's
another
okay.
meeting in 1 minute's time. So
Right.
nice talking to you, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Absolutely.
all right,
Bye.
been a joy.
Bye. Bye.
Have a great day.